In September of 2023, I gave the keynote presentation for our Fall Faculty Development Workshop. The topic of the presentation is the potentials of generative AI. Although the live session was recorded, it was not a complete recording. This screencast was created to add those missing sections. Virtual Me started the presentation with about 2.5 minutes of information. Then, Real Me did a live demonstration of 3 generative AI tools. Partially through the demonstration of the PowerPoint Designer feature is when the live recording starts. Finally, Virtual Me does another few minutes of the presentation, and Real Me closes with a live demonstration of ChatGPT. Welcome to the keynote presentation for the Fall Faculty Development Workshop. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Diana, your instructional designer, and I am so excited to be with you today, and I'm really looking forward to exploring the potentials of generative AI with you. My plan for this brief presentation is to provide a bit of a foundation for understanding generative AI before we dive into specific examples from our faculty panel discussion, which comes next. So here is our agenda. Now, like any good mathematician, I have to start by defining my terms. Let's look at this official definition of AI generative tools. AI generative tools are software applications that use artificial intelligence, AI, to produce content. This content can take on forms like text, images, audio, or video, and it's based on user input or data. As I would do if you were my students in math class, though, I also want to provide a more informal definition to help you understand the key distinction: produce content. That production is what makes the AI tool generative. You can think of it working in a similar fashion to the predictive text feature on your cell phone. When you're texting and your phone suggests the next word or phrase that you might be trying to type, it's using a similar algorithm to those used in generative AI. These tools use a great deal of data called large language models to generate, using probability, a response that seems reasonable to the prompt given. Now, we're going to look at a few examples, but before we do, let me pause and ask if you have any questions so far. Please feel free to raise your hand or put questions in the chat. And while you're doing that, I'll also mention that we'll be putting several links in the chat, both now and at the end of the presentation, so you'll have a chance to review all of this information later. The layout, the colors, the content sometimes. So any one of these slides, I can use this designer feature. To me, this is really cool. I used this extensively through creating this PowerPoint. And I really think it's one of the simplest and easiest examples of an AI generative aspect of a tool that, most of us are very, very familiar with. It's also very similar to the editor feature if you're in Microsoft Word and you're typing, and that right-hand pane gives you ideas about how to change a sentence or something like that. So the next one I want to show you is an app called Gamma. Now, this is an open source right now app. It's just at gamma.app. And the main feature that I wanted to show you here is right here on the home screen. Once you've logged in, there is a Create New AI button here. Okay, and you notice you have a couple of different options on how to use this. One is to have Gamma create for you either a presentation, a document, or even a website with a prompt. The other option is you can upload any kind of material. For example, it could be your course syllabus, and ask it to then transform that text into what you want it to be, whether it's a presentation or a different form of the document or a website. So I thought we would try out live together the generate from a prompt part. So you see what it does. The little virtual gamma comes up and says, "Hi, Diana, I'm your AI design partner. What would you like to create today?" Since we're talking about presentations, I was going to pick presentation. It says, "Sounds good. What do you want the presentation to be about?" So what I'm going to do here, I have a prompt that I already prepared that I am just going to copy and paste into this box. You'll notice what I'm asking it to do. Create a presentation for college faculty on the potentials of generative AI tools for education. I figured, well, why not, right? Let's have it do the work. So it says, okay, great, sounds interesting. Let me come up with a few ideas. It gives us, you see, it took a matter of seconds, an outline. You notice it tells me I can edit the outline or continue. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to say, you guys go for it. It gives us a preview of what it's going to look like. I can come down here and pick a theme if I want to, or I'm just going to pick surprise me. Heaven only knows what kind of colors and whatnot it's going to pick, but here it is. You notice up at the top, it says AI generating. Don't close this tab while the generation is in progress. And right here before our eyes, I have to say, it's creating a pretty decent presentation in a matter of seconds. Now, granted, this is probably a topic that the AI has definitely been trained on, right? But what I want to say while it's finishing its generation, I created one of these before. I'm going to include a link to the sample of both the one I created before and also this one. You see it says it's finished, right? You can see what it looks like. So I don't want you to worry about the details. You'll have a chance to review all of this later on, because all of this information is going to be in the shared folder that we are going to give you the link to, right? All of the details. So don't worry, you're going to get all of the stuff. I know it's hard to read a lot of the details here on the screen. And then before I turn it back over to virtual me again, I wanted to mention one other app. This one is Canva. It has a very similar kind of feature that Gamma does. It's called Magic Design. You see this button right here that you can get to, and you see that I have already used it to create an example presentation. Again, one that will be included in the folder for you all. So
Diana, I'm going to pause you for a moment again.
Yes.
We have some questions about these tools. Everybody is very excited to see them in action here. Are they free?
Yes, right now, I want to mention that as a caveat because, as you can imagine, these things are changing really quickly. Gamma right now is free. Canva does have a free version. However, the version I'm in right this second is the paid version. So there may be some distinctions between exactly how many of these bells and whistles, you know what I mean, that you get access to with the free version versus the paid version. So the Magic Design, as you see from this button here, it's still in beta testing. Canva just had a big release where they talked about all of the AI components that they've added to all of their features. But I'm going to put the exact same prompt into this Magic Design that I did into the Gamma to see what it generates for us. And I'm going to give it just a second, because this one we have used at CII to create things for presentations with Regis. It does have some of our colors in it, you know, our Regis Red and those kind of things. So I'm going to pick that. I'm going to say create. And again, while it's generating and doing this, I will mention the details here are important, right? It looks fantastic when you start looking at these at these tools, but sometimes you will see that what it generates isn't as great as you think. So I do want to issue my very first warning here of always look at what it's generating, check what it's generating, confirm what it generated as fact, right? That kind of thing. But as you see, when it creates one of these presentations, just like Gamma, it gives you everything, the layout, the images, the text, and all of it is editable. Okay, so let me pause right here. Christine, is there anything else that I need to address before I turn it back over to virtual me for the next little 2-minute clip?
Yes, we're going to follow up on a question. You don't have to answer this right now, but there have been some questions about citations, right, and authorship. The presentation holds your name. How would we cite that? Additionally, questions about can it make citations? And so we will address those questions probably towards the end a little bit, because that's a really important question, this question of citations, ongoing question.
And leave it up to our fantastic faculty to think of these things. So I know the library staff right now is so proud. Yes, we will definitely address those things. And look, if we don't get to everything today, which to be honest, we probably won't, because this is a huge topic. That's why I said in the beginning, remember, we are here for you. We're available for follow-up, workshops, demonstrations, just chats, meetings, whatever you all need, okay? All right, I'm going to turn it back over to virtual me. Before we dive into more detail with the next example, ChatGPT, the generative AI tool that we'll focus on most for this workshop, I'd like to spend a minute talking about the importance of the prompt. Now, the prompt is the set of instructions and details that you must provide to the generative AI tool in order to have it produce content. This slide gives a great formula that you can use to ensure you have the best prompt that will generate the output that you desire. So basically what I'm going to recommend is that you follow these steps. Number 1, tell ChatGPT who it is. For example, you are an experienced nurse working in a busy ER. Number 2, tell ChatGPT what you want. For example, write a list of 5 things to help ensure a work-life balance and avoid burnout. Number 3, give examples to help clarify what you want. So, for example, you might tell ChatGPT, don't just give a general suggestion, be specific and provide a resource where I can go to learn more. And number 4, revise and re-ask ChatGPT as needed to get the desired results. Please don't worry if you can't see all of the details on this image, as you will get a copy of it in the shared folder of resources. For now, though, let's try out by using the prompt we just created and see what ChatGPT generates for us. So I'm going to pause virtual me again, and now I'm going to go over to ChatGPT itself. The screen that we're looking at here is the screen that you come to once you've logged in. And I will mention right here, just in case you haven't already created an account with ChatGPT, you do need to be aware that it will require an email address and a cell phone. This is a new change. It didn't used to require a cell phone. It does now. And you'll also notice that you have a choice between GPT 3.5 and GPT 4. We are going to be doing our demo today with GPT 3.5, which is the free version. I do not have the paid version, but be aware that it generates a lot more, and it can also use images in a lot more and different and better ways than ChatGPT 3.5. So you'll also notice, before I do our demo of the chat itself, you'll also notice that over here on the left-hand side, it keeps a record of everything that you do. So you need to be aware, kind of like how everything is forever on the internet. Well, nothing is private in ChatGPT. Okay, so let me go over here and copy my prompt that we just created using the create formula, and I'm going to put it right here in our ChatGPT, the ask anything kind of button. So again, the prompt is, we're a nurse, we're working in a busy ER. We want a list of 5 things to help ensure a work-life balance. And we're asking ChatGPT to not just give general suggestions, but to be specific and give us resources of where we can go to learn more. So you notice just in the, whatever it's been, 10 seconds that it took me to talk to you and tell you that it's done. Here are the list of 5 things, complete with links to different places where we can go to learn more. Now you see over here on the left that I did this before with the exact same prompt. I did this because I also wanted to mention to you this other feature and button called Regenerate. Any of these things that you have done, if you don't like what it did, you can give it more information, go back to the create formula, as it says, revise and re-ask. So let's say I'm looking at this and I see where it's talking about continuously learning and adapting, and I'm interested in doing that. I'm interested in my professional development as a nurse, but I want to know where I can go to do these kinds of things for either free or low cost. So I could do a follow-up prompt here and ask about more details. I can also have it regenerate the entire prompt itself by hitting this button. And then all of these features, notice that you have the ability to copy the response, which is what I did to create the Word documents that I gave you here. Of course, I'll show you that after I log off. In the folder, I have the list of both the prompts and the PDF files to be able to see what ChatGPT generated for all of these things that I did as little tests, just to give you some examples of what it could do. You also may have noticed how ChatGPT is addressing me. Certainly, Dr. Purdue, maintaining the fact that it knows me and is addressing me as Dr. Purdue. That's a new thing. If you look under your settings, the 3 little dots that you notice I clicked on next to my name where it says custom instructions, this is a new thing where you can tell it, like I've told it, who I am and the kinds of things that I want. Right? I want it to be professional. I want it to give me resources. I want it to call me Dr. Purdue. And you can turn these customized instructions on or off for any particular set of prompts that you're doing. Okay, let me pause here and Christine, ask if there's anything I need to address before I let virtual me close out the last couple of minutes.
No, I think a closeout would be great. We have a lot of really excellent questions, but I think our faculty panelists are going to be able to address them a little more directly because they're going to be talking about teaching assignments and how this integrates. So thank you, Dr. Purdue.
Perfect. Thank you. As we close the demo and come back to the presentation, I'd like to mention a few things that you should consider. Be aware that anything you put into a tool like ChatGPT is not private. You shouldn't submit someone else's work without permission. and that includes your students' work. Realize that opening an account with ChatGPT has requirements that may restrict access for some people. For example, people who don't have a cell phone or people without high-speed internet. Also, consider that right now, tools like ChatGPT have known equity problems because of the limitations on the data sets that they've been trained on. I bring up these issues so you can consider carefully how to use these tools with your students in order to achieve your desired results. Here's a pro tip. Before assigning AI-based activities with your students, I recommend that you try it out yourself. Here's a way that you could do that. You could take some of the prompts that I have in our folder of resources, copy that prompt from the Word document, paste it into ChatGPT, and compare the results that it generates for you with those included in the document. This kind of practice will help you see the real meaning behind the word generative. It'll also help you find both pros and cons to using these kinds of tools. I'll leave you with this set of takeaways to summarize our overview of the potentials of generative AI. There is so much potential for using these tools in education, but it's important to choose the right tool, to consider the impact in terms of access, equity, privacy, and ethics. And in order to get the best results, it's important to create clear prompts, preferably using the CREATE formula. As promised, here's the list of resources. These include a great article describing the difference between AI and generative AI, a comprehensive glossary of terms, and links to the AI-generated presentations from both Gamma and Canva, along with the link to our shared folder of resources, which will also include the files shared from our faculty panel. Thank you so much for attending this workshop on exploring the potentials of generative AI. I really appreciate your attention. Now please know that the CII team is available for follow-up workshops and sessions, so don't hesitate to let us know what you need to make the most of this latest technology. Thank you. I feel like Virtual Me did a really good job on that. Before I close this out and field any questions and hand it over to Christine, I just wanted to mention one more resource that OpenAI, which is the company that created ChatGPT, just generated. There's a link to this in your folder of resources as well. It's a Teaching with AI guide. Specifically, what I wanted to mention to you is if you scroll down a ways, there is a wonderful list of example prompts to get you started that you can just copy and paste directly into ChatGPT just to get things going. The two articles that I mentioned, the generative AI versus AI, and this list of glossary, those links are also in the folder. So let me stop sharing right here for a second so I can see you all again. There you are. I'm so happy to see you. And let me ask those of you who are paying close attention, you may have noticed that there was one more thing on our list of examples, which was Bing Chat. And you might have noticed neither Virtual Me nor Real Me demonstrated that. That's because to show you that, I have to use the Edge browser instead of Chrome, which is what I was just showing now in all of these other demos. So Christine, you've probably been keeping time better than I have. Let me know, do we have a couple of minutes that I can show Bing Chat real quick, or do we need to move on to our faculty panel?
Yes, I think we're going to move on. Thanks, Diana. We're at 11 o'clock. I'd really love to just have the last hour here as a chance for your faculty colleagues to talk a little bit about how they're employing this in the classroom and in their work.
Absolutely. I'm going to turn it over to you and I will take over in the chat.
Great. Thank you, Diana. Thank you so much for those resources. for that wonderful presentation. I did do my best to drop some of the links in there for you, but I had a question, is this something that will be sent out? And the answer is yes. We're also, it's compiled into a nice folder. Diana has made us a wonderful folder with these resources and these links and what you're about to see from your faculty colleagues. So your faculty colleagues have pulled together some assignment descriptions or examples or even presentations that they have used or are planning to use with their students. And so you'll have access to those because they have so graciously shared them with us too. So a lot of resources certainly coming your way and a lot of wonderful questions in the chat. Diana's going to take some time, I think, to catch up here, and I am going to get us started hearing from our faculty.
Although, as you heard in the live presentation, I didn't get a chance to demonstrate Bing Chat, the other AI, I thought I would add it to this screencast so you would have a more complete picture of how the presentation would go. So you'll notice that I am currently in a different browser than I was for the majority of the live presentation. I'm now in Edge, and you see that I have bookmarked here Bing Chat. To get to it, if you don't have it bookmarked, you can just go to bing.com, and then instead of being in the search tab like you normally are when you're looking for things, you'll just click one over in the tabs up here at the top to chat. And you might have noticed when I came into this screen, it gave you a little bit of information here where it kind of tells you, this is Bing, I'm the new AI-powered chat. Unlike ChatGPT, Bing is connected to the internet. And unlike ChatGPT, at least version 3.5, its data set stops in 2021. And Bing, because it's connected live to the internet, it actually is current to right now. So I would encourage you to explore a little bit between the two different AIs because you may find some significant differences between the results that you get with Bing and with ChatGPT. So what I'm going to do is here in the Ask Me Anything box, I'm going to copy and paste the same prompt that I put into the ChatGPT demo, which is, we're an experienced nurse working in a busy ER, and we want a list of 5 things to help us ensure a work-life balance, and I'm asking for resources. So while it's generating this, I will mention that because I am on my work machine right now, and I am logged in, as you see up here at the top, with my Regis account, my Regis Microsoft account, it actually does not then keep your chat history in the same way that ChatGPT does. Now, if I were to connect this Microsoft Work account with my personal Microsoft account, then it would save that history. So just a couple of things to keep in mind. You notice it's still working here, but you notice unlike ChatGPT, it's giving us live links down here at the bottom in terms of where we can go to look up more information because, again, remember this is connected to the search engine. You scroll up to the top and show you that, like what you can do with ChatGPT, you can copy or export, which basically just means download, the results as well. And when it finishes, just like before, we can have it revise. We can use the create formula and ask it for some more information about anything in particular, or it gives us some suggestions for follow-up things as well. And last but not least, I'm going to close this recording with the just kind of walking you through some of the resources. And I will include these in some kind of clickable link as part of this screencast as well. So I'll just mention what we've got. This, what we're looking at right now is our Regis College library guide about generative AI. I also have the link to Virtual Me's presentation, which was done in ScreenPal. I have the link to the PowerPoint that I basically used as the presentation guide, and including the demo for Designer, which I will just mention here. This is the button. You didn't really get to see it in the live recording because it picked up after the fact. But this button right here is the button to turn on the Designer feature. And as you notice, any slide that I click on, it then will generate different versions of that slide to, to use in place of the one that you have. The Gamma presentation is another one that I will include the link to, as well as the Canva presentation. The other list of resources includes the guide from ChatGPT, Teaching with AI, the Generative AI versus AI article, and the glossary of terms for ChatGPT. Now, all of these things were given in our shared folder. However, if you're watching this from outside Regis College, which I assume you are, then you're not going to have access to these things. So I will put this as part of the screencast as well.